Dogs of Sakhalin and Hokkaido by Shinichi Komatsu. One requirement for research on Japanese dogs is to study dogs kept in Sakhalin and Hokkaido, the northernmost regions of Japan. The author had the opportunity to make a tour of Sakhalin and parts of Hokkaido one summer and has summarized most of what he saw and heard at that time. There are many dogs in Sakhalin that have been kept by the indigenous people for a long time. These dogs are not only used to pull sleds, a winter transportation tool, along with their dear relatives, but their meat and skins are also a necessity for the local people's daily lives. However, most of the sled dogs belong to the same lineage and are relatively large and powerful, except for specially trained hounds. Small dogs and other dogs are used for food and clothing. There are roughly 3 types of dogs found in Sakhalin today. Type I, a dog with particularly long coats and a shoulder height of 55-70 centimeters, similar to the Eskimo dog. Type 2. The second type is more common around the coast, and is used as a sled dog, with slightly shorter coats but about the same size as the former. Type 3. This type of dog is a small fox-shaped dog, which is a hound used by the Ainu, Jilya, and others for dervish hunting, but this may be a dog from the Hokkaido Ainu. The term Sakhalin dog usually refers to the aforementioned sled dog type 2, and small hounds are not referred to as Sakhalin dogs here. Therefore, of the 2 types of birch dogs, the long coat one is called the birch dog type 1 and the short coat one is called the birch dog type 2. The Sakhalin dog, in terms of its general characteristics, belongs to the northernmost lineage as defined by Dr. Wates. The tips of the ears are slightly rounded, the coat is dense, the tail curls over the back, and the face is roughly octagonal. The differences between the first and second types of birch dogs are as follows. Sakhalin dog type I. Coat is remarkably long. The hair color is black, dark brown, white, or spotted. The quality of the coat is much better than that of the Sakhalin dog type 2, and the value of the coat is high. The proboscis is relatively short. The stop is deep. The eyes are generally light in color. Facial horns are slightly rounded. Maximum length of skull 20-23 centimeters. Maximum width 12-13 centimeters. Sakhalin dog type 2. Coat is short. Coat color, blackish brown, sesame, spotted, etc. The stop is shallower than that of the first type. The proboscis is longer than that of the first type. The horns of the face are angular. Of course, there are those that fall somewhere between the 2 types. It is interesting to note that the skull of the Sakhalin dog is very similar to that of the Akita dog. Next, I examined the dogs kept by the Ainu tribe in Hokkaido, and found that they were small in stature and had little resemblance to dogs of northern stock. The dogs of the Ainu tribe in the Asahikawa area are 35-50 centimeters tall at the shoulder, with fox color, sesame color, or black color, which is mostly short coat, but some of them have considerably long coats. Dogs with such long coats are not found in southern Hokkaido. It is likely that the blood of the Sakhalin dog is mixed in with the blood of the Sakhalin dog. The long-coated dog has many similarities to the Sakhalin dog in the shape of its ears and the way they stand up. An old Ainu man told me that in the past there were many fox-like dogs with short coats. The Ainu use dogs to hunt bears, so most families have 2 or 3 dogs at a time. Since Asahikawa city is close by, there are many Western mongrels in Asahikawa tribe, and there are only a few dogs to be seen today. In addition, dogs from the Ainu villages of Biratori, Nabutani, Nai, Asachine, Mukawa, Shinkatsu, and Bitarba Biraga in Saru County in Hitaka, the central region of the Ainu people, retain the wild and primitive appearance of the Ainu dogs, which is typical of the Ainu. Dogs in Hitaka are small, and some of them are more like foxes or raccoon dogs than dogs. The characteristics of Hitaka's small dogs are as follows. Most are 35-45 centimeters in height. Many dogs have short tails. Ears are small and direct with pointed tips. Their eyes are dark brown. The coat color is fox, raccoon, white, black, brown, light red, etc. The nose, inside of the mouth, and claws are black. The face is octagonal like that of the Japanese dog. The snout is thin and pointed. Dogs from the Shirayoi tribe are characterized as follows. Most of them are 35-55 centimeters in height. Many of them have short coats. They are less wild than dogs from the Hitaka region. The above is a general overview of the Ainu dog, but when compared to small and medium-sized Japanese dogs, it is difficult to point out any particular differences between the 2. In particular, white dogs seen in the Asachine area are almost indistinguishable from those seen in the Kishu area. It should be noted however, that there are significantly more short-tailed dogs than in Honshu. I have already described the general situation of dogs in Sakhalin and Hokkaido in Nippon Ainu Volume 1, Number 1. After that, while gathering various materials, I came into possession of legends and other records concerning Ainu dogs, which I have compiled into this second report on dogs in Sakhalin and Hokkaido. Legends about the Ainu dog. Although there are not as many stories featuring dogs among the legends of the Ainu people as there are dog legends in Japan, some of the tales are quite interesting. Some of the most representative stories are as follows. Once upon a time, a very beautiful princess drifted ashore at Shibuchiri, and she cried on the beach because she was sad to be alone in this lonely place without anyone. A white dog came out of nowhere, and when he saw that the princess was crying, and that she was starving, he brought her food, as well as looms and tree bark. The princess wove in a tuss and put it on. From that day on, she was adopted by this white dog, and when she bonded with him, a boy was born, whom she called Ainu. Later, the white dog disappeared into thin air. The Ainu became a strong man and had many descendants, and finally made Izo his own land. This white dog was a beautiful male deity, and the princess was also a beautiful goddess. The Ainu of Sakhalin and Hokkaido both have this story, and although there are some differences in where the princess drifted to, this is the first story they tell wherever they go. Some Ainu in Hitaka add, our ancestors were dogs. That's why we are hairy like this. John Batchelor in his book The Ainu and Their Tales says, this story is a false legend. The Ainu do not respect dogs and therefore do not claim dogs as their ancestors. And as proof, they worship bears as gods and eat their meat, but they neither worship dogs nor eat their meat. He says this story of the white dog and the princess is not the original Ainu legend. The Ainu, as far as I know, do not worship dogs as loudly as they do bears, but they still worship them and eat their meat as well. In some ways, this story resembles the life in the mountains of Fushiheim and Hachifusa in Kyokuta Ibakan's Nanso Satomi Hakunden. It should also be noted that the Ainu people have the following story. There was a very beautiful girl in a certain tribe who did not have parents. One day, when the girl was by the river, she looked toward the voice that said, do you have a father or mother? The girl became very angry and called for the dogs, and the big dog ran out and snapped his tusks, startling the otter, who ran to the bottom of the river. After a while, the otter came out again and made fun of the girl. So the girl called the dogs again and they jumped to the bottom of the river, snapping their fangs, and pulled the otter ashore and killed it. This kind of story is not often heard in Japan. A long time ago, a serpent lived in a cleft in the northwest of Mount Timaya in Otaru. Many people were eaten to death by this serpent, so the villagers held a festival by offering cows and sheep, but it had no effect. The serpent stood at the dreamer's bedside and said, I want to eat an innocent maiden of 12 or 13 years old. The children of lowly people and children of families with sins were taken to feed them, and every August, a festival was held to send the children to the serpent. And while 9 girls had already been offered, a 10th maiden was needed, and it was decided to recruit and search for her. At the Iwane chief's place, where there were no boys and 6 girls, a young girl offered to sacrifice herself, but her parents would not allow it. The daughter even ran away from home to accept the offer, and her parents eventually forgave her. The daughter seemed to have her own way and brought with her a sharp sword and a fierce dog that could bite a snake. In August, the daughter entered the temple dedicated to the serpent, with a sword in her pocket and a fierce dog next to her, and first offered venison to the entrance to the pit. The serpent eventually came crawling, and just as it was about to eat the venison first, the daughter released the dog. The bite of the desperate dog seemed to be unbearable for the serpent. The serpent, even in its own right, thrashed about in agony, and finally laid its ugly corpse on the ground. The daughter probed the hole of the serpent and removed the corpses of the 9 maidens who had been eaten before. She said in a scolding tone, even though you are a woman, you are too weak to be devoured by a giant snake, and returned home. In the mainland, this type of story is told of a serpent, a raccoon dog, or a monkey. There are many stories about dogs such as Hayatero and Kampiroku, who were defeated by these fierce dogs, and who are worshipped as inugami, dog gods. If the Ainu of Hokkaido heard this story from the Japanese in recent years, it would not be of much interest, but if the story was passed down from generation to generation by the Ainu, it would be a very interesting tale indeed. This story is not as widely known among the Ainu tribes as the first story of the white dog and the princess, which suggests that the story may have been told by a Japanese person and turned into a legend. In Japan, this type of story often involves a male warrior and a dog instead of a beautiful beautiful woman, but the fact that the girl goes with the dog and returns in a relaxed manner is unusual. There is a place called Ainu in Rumoi County, Teshio Province, Hokkaido. The origin of the name of this place is told as follows. A long time ago, when the Ainu people in this area were suffering due to famine, every day the villagers sincerely asked God for help. Then one night, someone started distributing food in front of our house. The Ainu, grateful for the abundant blessings of the gods, wished to see them once, but this was not possible, and they only discovered the dog footprints that remained on the sand. The Ainu were very happy, believing that God had used dogs to provide them with food. These are the main Ainu legends about dogs. It is difficult to say whether these are all Ainu legends or Japanese folk tales, Japanese old tales. However, the Ainu and others have such stories about dogs. In all of these stories, the dog is still a loyal and brave animal, and we can see that they have a series of connections to the folk tales we have heard. In addition, the dog is not the main subject of the story, but appears in several places in their Ainu epics. Sled dogs in Sakhalin. Even in the days when railroads were built, dog sleds were still actively used to transport people over short distances. When Sakhalin was still Russian territory, all long-distance transportation, especially mail, was carried by dog sledges. The following is a description of the situation at that time in the Sakhalin Ainu story. In winter, mail is sent from Karsakau to Naihachi in sequence from village to village, and from Naihachi to Shishika by dog sled. From Shishika, the mail is sent by reindeer to Alexander. Mail originating from Alexander will also be sent in the same order as above. However, in those days, the transportation fee for horse-drawn wagons and deer was more than 100 yen from Amari to Sisaka. In the dog sled, it costs about 70 yen from Adamari to Shishka for up to 30 kan, 112.5 kg, in weight. Thus, it can be seen that the fare for dog sledges during the Russian occupation was less expensive than for other types of dogs. Thus, it can be seen that the fare for dog sledges during the Russian occupation was less expensive than for other types of dogs. Sakhalin dogs have the collective task of pulling sleds. The dogs are very united, and the skill of the dog at the front of the sled to lead several dogs toward a single goal is commendable and a good example of group dog training. As for the sled dogs of Sakhalin, I once went on an Antarctic expedition in Japan around the beginning of the Taisho era. The group was joined by Yasuyuki Yamei, a Sakhalin Ainu, as a Sakhalin dog and its driver. And I would like to introduce the story of Mr. Yamei here on the ship, from where he painstakingly buys sled dogs in Karafuto. In the summer of 1910, there was talk of an Antarctic expedition, and Mr. Sabe, the president of Nichinichi Shimbun, became the main advocate and decided to donate Sakhalin dogs to the expedition. Around the 10th of that month, the police of Tane village ordered me to accompany 30 dogs and a native to an Antarctic expedition in Tokyo. Mr. Yamei asked the natives for their opinions, and they all agreed that they had only a few sled dogs for their own use, but since the local government told them so, they should bring them out. The next day, they took their domestic dogs to the government office. Mr. Yamanobe and I selected good dogs in front of the officials and handed them over. Now, the use of dogs by the natives is similar to the use of horses by the Japanese. They only feed their dogs with fish. So when there are many dogs, there is a need for many fish. It is not hard for the natives to catch fish for their own food, but it is hard for them to catch fish for their dogs. Then they raise dogs and go far away in the winter on a dog sled. When people ride a shabby dog sled, they laugh at them and say, "Look at that dog sled." Because of this custom of the local people were reluctant to donate their dogs, but because this project was of national importance, they decided to make a sacrifice and donate their dogs to the project. However, people in other villages, with the exception of Tane village, said that a lead dog would cost 50 yen and a sled dog would cost 10 yen. In the end, however, it was decided to charge 15 yen for a lead dog and 3 yen for a sled dog. The next day, that is, on the 12th, we went out to Adamari with 5 people pulling 20 dogs. On the way, the dogs smelled an animal in the woods and chased it around. The group was so tired that they stayed overnight on the way and went to Amari the next day. After that, people donated dogs, bringing the total to 30, and we took them to Antarctica. From these stories, we can learn how much the Sakhalin Ainu and others cherished Sakhalin dogs and how expensive they were. In addition, it is said that when the Sakhalin Ainu would sleep at night in their dog sleds, they used to break pine trees and use the branches and leaves of the trees to exorcise the evil spirits before going to bed. In the Sakhalin Ainu language, a cloak made of dog skin is called seteris. Dogskin crotch pants are called siteobam, and dogskin gloves are called sidamatamir, and white dogskin is especially prized. I have summarized the above by drawing out stories related to dogs from Ainu legends and the sled dogs of Sakhalin, but I am sure there are many more stories and records like this. Comparing these legends with our own dog legends and those of other countries, and learning about the global trends of these legends, is a necessary condition for research on Japanese dogs. We believe that our relationship with customers begins after they bring a puppy home. Our motto is our foundation is family. We strive to be like family to our customers for a lifetime. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to contact us at the email address